Buckle up. We got a whole lot of news today to tell you about, and we are going to start in New York, where we're following breaking news in New York City. Allen Weisselberg, the Trump Organization's longtime chief financial officer, has surrendered to authorities. In a historic move, a grand jury indicted him and the former president's company over potential tax crimes yesterday. There's new video right here of Weisselberg turning himself in to authorities in New York City earlier this morning. Prosecutors have been investigating possible bonuses and perks that Weisselberg and other employees allegedly received. Jeff Pegues has the latest from New York.
Weisselberg walked into the courthouse this morning, and inside, he's going to be treated like a criminal. He's going to be fingerprinted and processed all ahead of this afternoon court appearance. The charges against the Trump Organization and CFO Allen Weisselberg relate to alleged failure to pay taxes on corporate benefits and perks. Weisselberg's former daughter-in-law turned over several boxes of documents to prosecutors.
He lives in a bubble where he believes everything Trump says.
Weisselberg has operated behind the scenes not only as a CFO, but the former taxi cab driver has also been the Trump family's personal bookkeeper.
Replacing George this week is my chief financial officer, Allen Weisselberg. And you think George is tough? Wait till you see Allen.
Barbara Ress was an executive vice president of the Trump Organization. Did Allen Weisselberg do anything without former President Trump's knowledge?
Nobody does anything major without Trump's knowledge and usually approval.
On a visit to Texas Wednesday, Mr. Trump ignored questions from reporters. But in a statement, former President Trump said his company's actions were standard practice and in no way a crime. A lawyer for Mr. Trump told CBS News he does not foresee charges against the former president himself.
The investigation continues.
But Harry Littman, a former federal prosecutor, says Mr. Trump is not out of the woods. What does this mean for former President Trump?
This indictment, anyway, looks to me like the culmination of a pressure campaign against Allen Weisselberg.
What prosecutors really want is for Weisselberg to flip. They want him to turn on his boss. We do not expect the former president to be here today at the courthouse, but his attorneys will. They're going to be here representing the Trump Organization as it is arraigned in the courthouse later on today. Anne Marie.
Jeff, thank you. Now we want to bring in CBS News legal analyst Rikki Klieman to dig a little deeper into how things are unfolding. So listen, Rikki, we heard Jeff say that prosecutors are hoping that Weisselberg will, essentially flip on his former boss, the former president, Donald Trump. I know we don't know exactly what charges he's facing right now because I believe they're still sealed, but we have an idea of the area that we are dealing with. It has to do with taxes and bonuses. So if he's found guilty, what potential punishment could he be facing? Would it be stiff enough to compel him to testify against Mr. Trump?
I doubt that the punishment would be stiff enough to have him testify against Mr. Trump, considering the length and breadth of their relationship. What you're dealing with here is the question of tax evasion on the issue of perks, meaning he got cars, he got apartments, then he got tuition for his grandchildren, and the cars and the apartments may have been used by his family. But ordinarily, that kind of a case, if it were ever brought at all against an executive, would really have been, if not a civil violation, would be in the vicinity of a misdemeanor, in which case there would be a fine. I can't even think of why someone would be sent to prison on a misdemeanor charge. However, in the state of New York, we are looking at New York tax law. One of the mistakes that I keep hearing on other networks is looking at this as if this were a federal tax case. We have to remember we're in the state of New York. So in the state of New York, a case of tax evasion, that is, you didn't declare the perks as income, that Allen Weisselberg could be facing the possibility of a prison sentence. It would be in the vicinity of 1 to 3 years. And there is also a much larger maximum, depending on the amount of tax that was evaded. So if you have a big pattern of activity over a period of years of consciously evading taxes about these perks, well, yes, they could try to give him a stiff prison sentence solely for the sake of giving him the incentive to cooperate against the former president. Keep in mind this, too, because the one thing that could make Allen Weisselberg decide that he would fold up his tent, cooperate in the prosecution tent against his former boss, Donald Trump, would be is if they also go after members of the Weisselberg family. We have to remember that people who got the benefit of these perks from the Trump organization were not only Donald Weisselberg, they were also his relatives. Relatives can make the difference. People will often plead guilty and cooperate, not because they're afraid of their own punishment, but they really don't want their relatives to be punished.
And we do know that at least one former relative, his ex-daughter-in-law, is involved in this whole thing. We are getting word, though, Rikki, that Weisselman intends to plead not guilty to the charges. At this point, former President Donald Trump is not expected to be charged today, but the grand jury will be sitting until November. So does that mean there's a possibility that there will be more indictments, possibly indictments concerning Mr. Trump?
Well, we have to also remember that we're dealing with the possibility today when the indictment is sealed or unsealed, at 2 p.m. in court, that also the Trump organization may be indicted. And if the Trump organization is indicted, that begins the process of looking at the principles of that organization in addition to Allen Weisselberg. I know that there are many people on the partisan side who would love to see the former president, as we would put it, in the soup. And being in less colloquial terms, would like to see him in legal jeopardy. And there are just as many people who would not like to see that happen. The difficulty with ever getting an indictment of any kind directly against Donald Trump on this issue, the issue of the perks, is that did Donald Trump direct Allen Weisselberg not to declare these on his taxes? Did Donald Trump direct the corporation not to account for these in their books? I doubt that you're going to have that evidence. But looking at your whole question, Anne-Marie, the grand jury is going to sit at least through November. It was impaneled as a special grand jury for a period of 6 months. It is not unusual for a grand jury to return interim indictments, which this is. The grand jury is going to continue to investigate, and there may be other people who will be indicted, in addition, of course, to the Trump organization. So time will tell, but this is a case, as we would put it, that has legs. This is not going away today for the Trump organization or its principles.
All right, Rikki, it has legs. That's true. So we'll have Rikki back to talk a little bit more about this. Rikki, thank you so much.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.